Je déclare la séance ouverte. Je vous souhaite la bienvenue à la réunion numéro 81 du comité permanent des anciens combattants de la Chambre des communes.
Sur l'expérience vécue par les vétérans.
We will continue our study on the experiences of women veterans. Seeing as we are beginning our meeting at 5:10, there is a possibility that the committee may continue until 7:10. However, there are some members who have commitments, including myself, and I have to leave at 6:30 p.m., so we shall discuss that at the appropriate time. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format in accordance with the standing orders. Members may participate in person or via Zoom, and in fact, there are a number of members who are with us today on Zoom. And I would also like to mention
Kellaway for that meeting. Et mesdames, messieurs, comme vous le savez, cette salle est munie.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you are aware, this room has a powerful audio system. However, there can be interference or feedback, especially if you move the earpiece near the microphone while you are speaking. So I ask you to please be very cautious in order to avoid causing any problems to our interpreters who are doing the translation. And I would remind you briefly that all comments by members must be addressed through the chair.
And this afternoon we have, for the first hour, à titre individuel, Madame Paula McDonald.
Appearing as an individual, Ms. Paula McDonald, Master of Social Work.
From the Canadian Veteran Service Dog Unit, we have the President, Mr. Dwayne Sawyer, and a member, Christina Sharp. You're going to have Mrs. McDowell 5 minutes for your opening statement. After that, we're going to go to Mr. Sawyer from the Canadian Veteran, and you can split this 5 minutes time. So now we are ready, and right after that, members of the committee will, in a row, ask you a question. So I invite Mrs. McDonald for your opening statement. So you have 5 minutes, and I'm going to try to let you know the time. Please go ahead.
Honorable committee members, I am very pleased to have the opportunity to share my personal and professional experiences with the VAC ministry pertaining to obstacles women face because of their military service. I have a master's degree in social work with significant professional experience working with adults in medical social work area and providing counseling and therapy at a clinical level. I'm a strong advocate for victims of military sexual trauma because I became one in 2015. I turned to the legal system with the hopes of addressing the epidemic of sexual assault in the CAF by assisting my fellow service members with the class action lawsuit when I provided valuable evidence that displayed the corruption within the military legal system that prevented victims from accessing care and legal remedies. Veterans Affairs Canada facilitates the care and legal remedies military members receive caused by their military service. I have witnessed survivors benefiting from the outcomes of the class action lawsuit because it has granted them access to care. However, I am concerned that the perpetrators of this violence are not being held accountable for their criminal behavior and violations of the Code of Service Discipline. I fear for the safety of still serving members. I am still pursuing a human rights complaint with the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal regarding how I was specifically harmed during my military service, as remedies obtained to the class action lawsuit did not address the damages I sustained from the chain of command. I served in the Canadian Armed Forces between October 2014 to January 2016. First as a medical reservist or as a medical technician, and then as a direct entry social work officer. As soon as I became subject to the National Defense Act, the CAF leadership behaved in a sexually harassing manner towards me that escalated into 3 separate sexual assaults by different men enlisted or employed by the National Defense Ministry. I availed myself of the internal military judicial system only to experience corruption and lawlessness within the chain of command with the goal of protecting senior leaders who violated various acts of parliaments and their professional codes of conduct who are at higher ranks within the chain of command than me. Many individuals have known that they engaged in human rights violations towards me because they voluntarily released from service to avoid accountability under the National Defense Act. Rape was used by military members as a punishment for breaking their code of silence and telling outside authorities of escalating sexual harassment. Sexual favors and sexual exploitation by commanding officers was used to communicate to other men in positions of power, control and dominance over me because I dared to report the violations I was being subjected to by military leaders. When I directly called superiors out on their human rights violations, the superiors conspired with other superiors to suppress my allegations and abused internal legal proceedings to benefit themselves with the goal of avoiding consequences for their conduct. Doctors, nurses, harassment advisors, human resource management personnel, the grievance authority, military police, and supervisors in the chain of command work together to suppress my rights as a Canadian citizen to have security of bodily autonomy. I have sent the committee email correspondence and other evidence of the chain of commands obstructing justice for your review. Military leaders continue to harass me for trying to file a sexual assault complaint after my release. On one such incident occurred in September 2018 when a military police officer called me to scream and yell at me to stop trying to make a report. Military police stationed to the Sexual Misconduct Response Center refused to accept my allegations from 2016 to 2019. In 2021, I convinced the RCMP to forward my allegations to the military police. The military police took a general statement from me and did not investigate the actual incidents I reported as rape and sexual assault. They verbally informed my lawyer and I that they were sending my allegations directly to the chain of command to address. However, there is no written record indicating the military police followed through with this action. The mandate of VAC is helping former members reestablish their lives post-service and address service-related disabilities. I was met with multiple hurdles that stem from how the bureaucracy is set up and a lack of organizational knowledge as to how to address the significant physical, mental, and emotional and social impacts of sexualized violence in the chain of command. I was forced to stop working with the Government of Canada in November 2017 because I couldn't access appropriate health and social services to address the injuries I sustained because of my military service. I feel if I had been provided with appropriate care, I could have continued working for the Government of Canada. I did not receive access to legal avenues to address sexualized violence when the perpetrators controlled the military legal system and had unlimited access to government support. The victims are responsible for the initial financial legal costs and legal work of proving the wrongdoing engaged in by superiors in the chain of command, who are strongly protected and supported by the system of our government. Veterans Affairs refused to grant me access to attendant care when I went through an in-depth civilian police interview regarding the first sexual assault I experienced, even though I'm pensioned for PTSD caused by this assault. The Sexual Misconduct Response Center also failed to provide me with services. I have received threats on social media from retired military members because I advocated for the sexualized violence to stop. I feel that services need to be set up to address threats as it significantly decreases the quality of life of the survivor. I welcome your questions regarding gender-based analysis as they pertain to disability awards for female reproductive organs, female musculoskeletal injuries, and treatments of MST victims. I also welcome your questions regarding the ineffective legal remedies to address military sexual assaults and VAC personnel's interpretation of the Government of Canada's legal responsibility to victims of this abuse. Please allow me to help you and create effective mechanisms to stop this institutionalized sexualized violence that harms service women. I am not alone with my experience with the National Defense Ministry. I have not given up because I agreed to serve my country. 7 young men committed suicide during the time I was in basic training, and countless other women experienced sexualized violence during basic training and voluntarily released. The level of abuse impacts everyone. The Government of Canada needs to help survivors rebuild their lives and ensure the abuse stops by holding perpetrators accountable. Effective healthcare services and social programming is required to create the defense community Canada deserves.
Thank you very much, Mrs. McDonald. And now let's go to Canadian Veteran Service Dog Unit with Mr. Sawyer or Mrs. Sharp. Please go ahead for 5 minutes.
Thank you for having us. My name is Christina or Tina Sharp. I joined the Canadian Armed Forces Reserves in 1994 as an MSE operator, a truck driver, a trade I served in for 4 years, and then I became a medical assistant for the last 4 years of my career. While I served as a medic, I discovered that I had a passion for caring for the ill and injured and channeled that into a civilian career in social services. I released from the military in 2002 and didn't realize it at the time, but my release was heavily based on the multiple sexual assaults I had experienced during my service. Over a decade later, I came to understand that I needed help in dealing with my non-physical injuries that were caused by military sexual trauma. I was eventually diagnosed with agoraphobia and post-traumatic stress disorder from my military sexual trauma. I live with PTSD and agoraphobia because of military sexual trauma. And because of that, over the years, my world became smaller and smaller. I felt less and less safe. I talked with my therapist about the possibility of getting a service dog, but finding the right organization was key because not all service dog providers have high-quality service dogs, and they do not support the ill and injured veteran, and the cost to obtain a service dog can be very high. Then one day I met Dwayne Sawyer, the president of the CVSDU, and his dog Nala. He encouraged me to apply for a service dog, which I did. Before I met Stoker, and before he became a part of my life and I became a part of the dog unit, I rarely went out in public. I had moved to Carleton Place from downtown Toronto, but I never really even went out to explore my neighborhood. Meeting Stoker and being paired with him and training with him and becoming a member of the Canadian Veteran Service Dog Unit has significantly changed my life in a positive way. Stoker owned a piece of my heart from the moment we met. While walking with him in the training area, my anxiety started to slip away, and I was able to be in the present. This was something I hadn't experienced in a new place, around new people in years. There's something that is significant and healing in the animal-human bond. Let me describe to you some of the positive effects Stoker has had on my health, my well-being, and my sense of peace and security. The first night Stoker was with me, I slept through the night, and this was the first time in ages I had done this. He responds when I'm having a nightmare and gently wakes me up with deep pressure. On days when I'm anxious, he picks up on my anxiety before I do and works to distract me, bring me back in the moment, and calm me down. Stoker gives me purpose, something to wake up to, and he gives me my day a healthier routine. The simple things like grooming Stoker, preparing his meals, baking treats, making sure we both get well exercised has helped me to heal and has contributed to my overall wellness. My world has become bigger, healthier, and happier because of Stoker and my place in the CVSDU community. I'm not just speaking for myself today. I'm speaking to a community of injured veterans and their families whose lives have been made better by the presence of a service dog in their household. This past winter, shortly after I joined the unit, another injured veteran was paired with his trained dog. And they will tell you the same story of mine, a story of stabilizing with a service dog, finding a healthy routine, and healing. The reason I bring my colleagues' experience is because I want to share with you what happened in his family and household because of his service dog. His spouse told us that the presence of the service dog changed their quality of life and saved their marriage. She literally said, "I used to be his service dog." Spouses also told us that the service dog has helped heal relationships between the member and his children because together they share in the care, play, and joy of having a service dog. Based on our experience, we have coined the phrase, "Our service dogs save lives, and they save families." We have seen this over and over again. It's not just about the service dog. It's also about the community of injured veterans that care for and support one another within the CVSDU. I have felt supported both by the dog trainers and other members of the unit. My dog's trainer's name is Judy. As a survivor of military sexual trauma, communication and consent are an important part of my healing journey. Judy always checks in to make sure I'm in a good place, and we always have backup plans if my mental or physical injuries are acting up. With the support of Judy, her husband, Ken, and people like Dwayne, Shelley, and other members of the dog unit, I'm in a much better place than I was a year and a half ago. I'm feeling much stronger, and because of that, I'm starting a process of reconciliation with family members that I've been alienated with for a long time. The CVSDU has given me so much life and hope back. I'm excited to be a member of this incredibly unique community and connect with peers in a safe, supportive environment. One of the other things that makes the CVSDU special is that we are the only veteran-run charity in Canada that provides trained service dogs free of charge to injured veterans. Other charities provide service dogs to veterans, but their program delivery and trainers are not accountable to veterans. There are some organizations that take advantage of veterans and provide poorly trained dogs or ask the veteran to pay for dogs. The cost of a service dog commercially is anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000. My journey to a service dog started 6 years ago. This was not the first organization I applied to, and I'd experienced some large trauma from other organizations who had far less integrity than the CVSDU offered me from the very moment that I met them. The CVSDU receives no support from any level of government, and we have applied for funding from BAC or tried to engage with the minister through letters. We've been told that there is no clinical evidence that dogs help survivors of PTSD heal. I'm here to tell you that service dogs save lives and they save families. The CVSDU is a special community with an important mission. Any Canadian veteran diagnosed with PTSD, if they want and need a service dog, they should be able to come to our charity, or one like ours, and be treated with dignity and respect, and provided a dog and an opportunity to be part of such an amazing, caring community free of charge. Eventually, we want to be able to do that across the country, ourselves or with our partners. We want to eventually become a legacy like WAR-AMPS, CNIB, and the Canadian Paraplegic Organization, and other charities that came into being to help injured veterans. We want to become a charity that military members and veterans know will be there for them when they're service to the country and are injured because of that service. We are not doing this just for ourselves. We are doing this for the next generation of injured military members. We are veterans helping veterans. On behalf of all of our members, we want to thank you for this opportunity today.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sharp. And you know that this study that we are doing on veterans and women, it's a special one for the committee, so that's why I let you go till more than over 5 minutes. But please, I have to warn everyone here, trigger warning. So I would like to provide this trigger warning because we may be discussing experiences related to general health and mental health. This may be triggering to viewers, members, or staff with similar experiences. If you feel distress or need help, please advise the clerk. Donc, nous allons discuter d'expériences.
So we will be discussing experiences related to mental health, which could be a triggering event for people here with us, the members of the audience, members of the committee and their staff who may have had similar experiences. If you feel troubled or need assistance, please inform the clerk.
Challenges to invite you, so we are so pleased that you be able to do it. And thank you for your opening statement, and it's a lot of courage to be able to explain or to discuss that in front of us. So thank you very much. And I also want to thank you for your military service, as well as people in the room too. And now we're going to start a round of questions. The first round of questions will be for 6 minutes each. And I'm pleased to invite Mr. Blake Richards to take the floor.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I just want to echo the Chair's sentiments as well. Thank you to each of you for your service to our country. And Paula and Christina, thank you for your courage to come and share from your personal experience. I know that isn't always easy to do, and want to thank you for your courage in doing that. And I wanted to ask each of you a little bit about your experiences with VAC. I know with the short time you had for an opening statement, you didn't really get much of an opportunity to talk about your experiences with VAC. Before I do that, though, I would like to, from the perspective of the Canadian Veteran Service Dog Unit, Now, I don't know if it's yourself, Christina, or if Dwayne, as the president, is better positioned to answer this. I'll let you decide between you. But I wanted to, if you could tell us a little bit, Christina did allude to it a little bit, but if you could tell us a little bit about your experiences as an organization in dealing with VAC.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. And I'd like to thank the committee for having us here today. Last year, our charity had applied to the Veteran Family Wellness Fund with a proposal that would fund the growth of our charity nationally. Our application was rejected because it was deemed our charity did not have the capacity to undertake such a project, and because VAC states there is no good clinical evidence that service dogs are an effective form of treatment for PTSD. It is important to note that service dogs are not a form of treatment for PTSD. Service dogs help individuals and help their families deal with the effects of PTSD. So that treatment for the injured veteran is possible. Christina's story and her testimony bears witness to the importance of service dogs in dealing with PTSD. Last spring, we wrote a letter then to the Minister of Veterans Affairs in an attempt to build a relationship with VAC so we might work together. The Minister responded in a letter dated the 15th of May, 2023, and he stated that Veterans Affairs was going to reevaluate their approach to service dogs. When we attempted to talk to staff about this reevaluation in email coordinates, they said that they knew nothing about the reevaluation, and there would be no reevaluation because there's no good clinical evidence of the effectiveness of service dogs. We have many questions about VAC and our relationship with them. For instance, is it an experience that VAC does not want to work with us in spite of the fact that we are a veteran-run charity? We also wonder why Veterans Affairs won't help fund our growth through the Veterans and Family Wellness Fund when they have substantially funded a service dog program administered by a corporate-style charity. And they have also funded an equine therapy program for veterans in Prince Edward Island. We're not aware of good clinical evidence that substantiates the effectiveness of equestrian therapy. We wonder what criteria VAC uses to fund projects that applies to the Veteran Family Wellness Fund. Canadians are going to continue to serve in the Canadian Forces at home and overseas, and they're going to be injured. We want to grow a program so that our daughters and sons don't have to struggle as hard as we found ourselves injured and struggling with PTSD. We are hoping that one day Veterans Affairs Canada will see the real value of our project and they will join with us so we can help veterans and families who are dealing with PTSD across Canada.
Okay, thank you for that. And, you know, it certainly sounds to me as though there might be some inconsistencies in terms of how VAC is viewing these things, and maybe it's something we as a committee can endeavor to try to get some answers to when we next have the opportunity with Veterans Affairs officials here. I wonder if you could maybe, you mentioned a letter you received that outlined some of the things you talked about, for example, saying that they didn't see any, I think you said there was no clinical evidence or something like that of service dogs having any utility. If you could share that letter with the committee, would be appreciated. So if you could send it to our clerk to be distributed to the members of the committee, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you. Now, what I'd like to do is give Christina and Paula both an opportunity. Maybe I'll start with you, Christina. You had mentioned that you have dealt with Veterans Affairs Canada with relation to some of your mental and physical injuries. Do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about your experience with Veterans Affairs and what the nature of that's been?
When I released from the military in 2002, I thought that everything was fine and I went about life and carried on, and it wasn't until almost a decade later that things started to get really bad for me, and I started my engagement with Veterans Affairs. I've had some incredibly positive experiences with case managers who are incredibly helpful and supportive, but I've also experienced the absolute flip side to that, and I've had an incident with a case manager who didn't intake with me and went over some very emotional things. It was a very triggering appointment for me. And 2 weeks later, when she called back to finish the intake, she started from the beginning and had completely forgotten everything that we had been through in the first 2-hour appointment. And I had to rehash it again. And it was incredibly destabilizing for my mental health. I am now permanently disabled, so I don't fall under the case. I don't have a case manager. And I've knock on wood, not had incident to need to engage with Veterans Affairs because I feel like I am well taken care of. My mental health is well supported, and I have the resources that I need.
I mean, that what you mentioned in terms of having to retell all of your story and your information is something we hear far too often, and something we need to make sure we include in our report. Hearing there's only about 30 seconds, so Paula, can you, in as brief as you possibly can, I guess, tell us a little bit about your experiences with Veterans Affairs?
VAC are very committed to serving veterans, but they're often stifled by the system. There's issues with decision-making frameworks used by employees, as there's lots of flexibility in the frameworks in terms of their interpretation of the law and the medical evidence. And what's happening is a lot of women are having to provide more medical evidence than their male counterparts in order to receive the same type of, to receive access to healthcare benefits and to receive the service. The evidence-based framework is made up of male physiology, and women are different. And what's happening is women are having to take decisions through the Veterans Appeals Board to get an accurate medical assessment. And that's placing the work on the victim whenever we have people who are paid to do this work. But it's ending as a complaint-based process, as opposed to it being a proactive way to use evidence-based frameworks to make the decisions to make the veteran whole again. And then I'll share with Christina where it's death by repeating your trauma over and over and over again, and no one comes to help you. You either make it on your own or you don't.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. So now let's go to MP Randip Sarai for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the witnesses. I know it's not easy going through this, and I want to thank you for your service as well. It can be probably pretty difficult to come here and talk and share your experiences. And as Ms. Sharp, you mentioned, rehashing it is not something appropriate. I think that you should be ever asked to do over and over. So I apologize if VAC has done that to you in the past. I was wondering, and maybe I'll go to Ms. McDonald first. If in your experience, what are the main issues that women veterans are facing when transitioning to civilian life?
It's the amount of abuse that they've experienced. Like, it's unfathomable. People don't really understand how much abuse the women have gone through in terms of repeated sexual assaults, repeated rapes, and the betrayal by the government system, and then issues in terms of getting the appropriate medical documentation, rehashing, preparing the legal files was a big issue for class members. Getting civilian healthcare professionals who can understand the level of abuse and the impacts of the abuse. And then working with Veterans Affairs in terms of collecting the medical evidence. Veterans Affairs is using like a methodology that was built in the 90s in terms of matching the 90s healthcare system without recognizing the problems or that we don't have the same healthcare system. So it's a lot harder for us to get the documentation that they require in order for them to provide the healthcare benefit or service to the veteran initially, whenever the veterans are first starting to get in. And then other women are experiencing issues in terms of, like, let's say women who went through in the 80s. They were not able to get their musculoskeletal issues taken care of because at the time when they were first going through, there was discriminatory practices where they were not being acknowledged. And the process, when you have post-traumatic stress and you're going through and trying to create the medical evidence, is very difficult for someone to do, and they need support doing that.
And Ms. Sharp, if you want to add something.
I think one of the more difficult elements of my transition from the reserves to the civilian world was I was quite young when I joined. I was 17, and a lot was ingrained in me, and I learned a lot about life and the world from my time in the service. So when I transitioned to the civilian world, a lot of the really inappropriate behaviors that I experienced within my service were so normalized that it transitioned into my civilian career, and in my mind, it was perfectly normal to experience sexual harassment and inappropriate touching, all kinds of inappropriate behavior into my civilian career.
And in your view, what should the government do to address issues you've identified, both of you, to improve services towards women veterans? Go ahead.
So, a lot of the time now, like trauma services are lumped in with addiction services, and not all women have addictions issues, and the trauma needs to be treated in a different way than addictions are treated, because the women are having issues with people coming in and violating their personal boundaries, and addictions, they control your personal boundaries and how you function. So it's not the right type of treatment method. Other things that need to be considered is how the benefits are structured. The benefits are structured to really help people who've had longer service careers. And a lot of the women that experience, like my service was only about a year, and I ended up being brutally, like, abused, like, so much that, so it impacts your ability to be able to work and your future earning potential. So we need to work with that one in terms of helping women to reestablish their lives that way.
And on that same note, I'm just curious to know, when you make a complaint for sexual harassment or the like, is there any parameters that are set on the accused, so the perpetrator, that they have no contact with you until the investigation's over, or even and then subsequently afterwards? Or in the military, is that not the case where there's no parameters? But because both of you, I think, mentioned that there were, it would continue, or superiors maybe, but that might have been superiors. But is the actual accused permitted to talk to you? Is there any boundaries?
There's no parameters that are put in place, and there's no respect for the victim. And in my particular case, I made a complaint. I was used to working as a civilian, and I was a social worker for the New Brunswick government. So I was used to being respected. And the military allowed the accused to run the investigations in my case, because they were so used to being able to get away with it that they didn't follow any of their internal policies or guidelines. So it's really badly done, and a lot of victims are scared to report because they know, like, about the brutal way that the military will treat them. I actually got sexually assaulted after I reported the sexual harassment to the St. John City Police, which was an outside agency, and the military police only spoke with those that I accused of engaging in sexual harassment and locking me in a C-can after I complained.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sarai. So we're going to move on, and I'd like to invite you that you can use the earpiece for translation, and voila, and you can choose Flo or English. Et sur ce,
So that being said, I would like to invite Mr. Luc Desilets to take the floor for the next 6 minutes. Mr. Desilets. Thank you, Chair. Perhaps we could just do a little test then to see if the translation is coming through. Can you hear it? Yes? Very good. Excellent. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for your service, and thank you for being able to share as you have done. It's not easy. And hello to my colleagues. The first questions are for you, Ms. McDonald. You had a report from Colonel Hanrahan, who said that the evidence obtained regarding the issue of those allegations of assault were not founded or were unfounded. So how do you explain that when you reach that level of a complaint? How would you explain that response is given to you?
They're saying that it's unfounded, but it's ridiculous, because the issue is that the military police wouldn't copy down the allegations at the beginning. And there was, so it would be like, I'd call up to the Sexual Misconduct Response Center in like 2015, they'd send me to deal with the chain of command. 2016, after I got out, I'd be speaking with military police, and what they would do is not do the documentation, and the military provost office is blaming me for the military police officers not documenting. The other issue is that the complaints would go back into the chain of command, and the people that were supposed to be addressing the complaints, like the military police officers, would speak with the chain of command and ask them how to address my complaints before they would allow me to make an allegation. So it's just an exercise in futility with the military police provost office, because all as they did was review the files of the non-existent files of the military police officers and then blame me for their incompetency and their violations of not writing down the allegations.
Mais la police militaire a fait
But the military police made a report. When the incidents occurred, they made a report in writing that existed, I imagine.
Okay, so the incidents that occurred, they did not make a report in writing because during the time whenever, so I have 3 sexual assaults that have been investigated by civilian police. The civilian police have confirmed that a definite sexual assault happened on January 23rd, 2015. The military police refused to investigate it because they got the allegations in 2021 and they did not investigate those allegations. The other issue would be sexual exploitation by a member of the chain of command, and they defer to the member within their police investigations. So nothing happened with that one. And then the issue of me being sexually assaulted in basic training, they did not. So the way that it would work is that I'd have to go to the chain of command and make the complaint. So they assigned me a civilian administrative clerk to be my assisting officer, and she pretended that she did not know that a breast grope is a sexual assault, and then wrote into the chain of command that she didn't know how to address my allegations. And the chain of command then just was hoping that I would go away and they would not address it. They even went so far as in 2018 to call me up and scream and yell at me to stop trying to make a report prior to having my first mediation with the Human Rights Tribunal regarding the abuses that they had subjected me to. So it's like a complete obstruction of justice, intimidation by the members of the chain of command who are engaging in sexual abuse of their members.
Et vous avez bien dit que dans le cas
And you said that in the case of one of the complaints that you formulated, the accused was responsible for the investigation. That is indeed what you said.
That would be an issue. So I have a Human Rights Tribunal. So within the complaints, as soon as I complained about the sexual harassment, they just continually harassed me and they tried to take administrative measures against my career, and they did not want me to become a social work officer because I was adamant about this type of behavior not being appropriate. So they decided to threaten to dishonorably discharge me and declare me mentally unfit for service for complaining, and they allowed the doctor who ordered the medical examination to create the medical evidence to declare me mentally unfit to do the investigation.
Merci.
Thank you. Mr. Sarah, Ms. Sharp, your organization financed how? How is it financed? In a few words, because I see that we're short of time.
Our organization's financed all through donations from members of society, some corporate donations as well. We get no grants and we get nothing from back or anyone.
ACC ne finance pas, mais ce qu'il
So it doesn't finance it, but does it recognize your organization?
Yes, we're a charitable status. We have charitable status. Is that what you mean?
Okay. Est-ce que vous faites aussi
Well,
l'entraînement des chiens?
the training of the dogs, the purchasing of the dogs, do you do that? All of that?
That's correct. Our trainers, we have hired, actually train the service dogs themselves. One of the things that sets us apart from a lot of other organizations is we have ongoing training sessions. So after the member and the dog are fully certified and they can go out into public, we then have weekly training sessions that our members can attend, and it almost acts like a peer support.
Dernière question très rapide.
Last question briefly. I'm sorry, Mr. Desilets, because we've already extended. I wanted to let the gentleman, Mr. Sawyer, that is, complete his answer. And now on Zoom.
So, Ms. Blaney, you have 6 minutes to ask questions to our witnesses. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you so much, Chair, and thank you, of course, to the witnesses. Thank you for being here, sharing your very important stories, and of course, for your service. So if I could come to you first, Ms. McDonald, you've had a very unique experience in the sense that you're both a woman veteran and a social worker who has worked with VAC. So I'm just wondering, given this perspective, how do you think VAC caseworkers can improve upon working with veterans, especially women who have experienced military sexual trauma?
Down on the amount of bureaucracy that is present so that it makes it user-friendly for the women who are seeking services. A lot of the women, some of the women that I work with as a social worker, they have musculoskeletal issues, like physical issues from the abuse, and they don't want to go through the medical processes because it's so tedious to prove that the injury is military service related, that it'll just stops them from going through it. And also repeating the trauma over and over and over again is re-traumatizing and re-victimizing. Would it be possible for me just to expand upon the last question? I needed to gather evidence of sexual abuse for the Human Rights Tribunal, and I had to ask I had to go through access to information, and the request went through the member that was sexually exploiting me. And I was looking for telephone records, and of course the member was not able to provide them, and I need to get a warrant in order to get the evidence, and I can't get the evidence unless a policing body goes and looks for the evidence. And in the military, the request went directly into the person that was accused of abusing me.
Well, thank you for that clarity. I do appreciate that. And I think it really leads to my next question, which is that we've heard again and again from women veterans and experts that MST survivors need a way to report their sexual harassment or assault outside the CAF altogether. And a lot of that is focused on the concerns about chain of command. What difference do you think an external reporting system would have had for your case in terms of seeking justice for MST?
Have been sexually assaulted less. I think I would have had less abuse. It wouldn't have been so bad for me if there was an outside reporting mechanism. And it was also really bad because I went to the police and asked them for help, and they told me that they couldn't help me. So then it put me back into the situation where I was dealing with my abusers. And it went on for a year of the abusers pretending that they were going to do investigations into it, and then they're just not doing it. So it creates a lot of trauma in terms of the system, and it needs to be externalized because it's the way that it's set up now. It just gives them more opportunity to hurt their victims.
Thank you for that. Are you good if I ask another question, or would you like me to give you a break and ask another question of the other witness?
I think I'm okay. Sorry about that.
Okay. No, you should not be sorry. I just want to make sure that we're looking after each other. So I'm wondering if you could explain a little bit. I read from your information that VAC actually denied you a support person when you were interviewed by police about what had happened. Can you talk a little bit about the rationale that VAC gave you and how that felt for you?
The rationale that VAC gave me was that it was a social issue as opposed to it being a medical issue. But I'm pensioned for severe PTSD, and sometimes I have a vomiting condition where I'll vomit and then I can't complete, I'll vomit all day long. Okay. So I can't they denied me a support person and they said that I would have to call the ambulance if I were to have a PTSD attack. But lucky for me, I vomited the weekend, like the 2 days beforehand, and then I was able to make the police report. And my cousin went with me, or like drove me to the place to do it. So I had family support. I was lucky where other victims might not.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to start with you, Ms. McDonald, first, and then I'm going to move over to Ms. Sharp, asking you both the same question. I just am really curious about this because I feel that often what we're hearing in testimony is that VAC disregards the interrelation of mental and physical health problems in terms of the benefits that they provide for veterans. So I'm just wondering if you could both share a little bit about what are the like physical manifestations of the PST that you have, if you could just talk a little bit at your comfort. Paula?
Vomiting, like I have some, if I'm activated with PTSD, I have bits of memory, like working memory. I have issues with body pains. Like I'll relive the trauma. So there's issues in terms of, there's physical issues and there's also issues with like sexual reproductive health issues, and issues with, there's issues with like, so I guess body pain would be a big one that I would say. A lot of people have I also have migraine issues, and it's very difficult to get the consequential issues diagnosed because it's like a situation where it's like a diagnosis where they rule out everything, and within the current medical system, people are like the healthcare practitioners are unlikely. They don't know that they have to attribute it to the service in order for the veteran to then be able to get additional like healthcare treatments that would help to address that in the day-to-day.
Ms. Sharp?
So that's my answer. Sorry about that.
So the way that some of my symptoms manifest, one of the one of the ones that affects me the most, especially when I'm out in public, is auditory stimulation. I am incredibly sensitive to sounds, and it can be, I can hear like little things in the background that will distract me and sort of, I'll end up dissociated and taken to another place, and it can be incredibly distracting and frustrating to deal with. And then some of the physical symptoms, I can sometimes go days without eating because even though I'm hungry, if I'm activated, my symptoms are really bad. My stomach and digestive system really can't even tolerate food going in, and I do end up physically ill. And similar to what Paul was saying, the pain issues, I have pain that there really is no explanation for. I've gone to the doctor and I've gone, and I feel pain in places I don't have injuries. I experience exhaustion and physical symptoms that there really is no explanation for.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Blaney. And we have a second round, but this round will be a little bit short. I know that it's we don't like to interrupt our witnesses, especially in this kind of study, but I would like to ask members to try to restrain a little bit the question. So the next one will be 4 minutes for Mrs. Wagenthal, 4 minutes for Mr. Casey, and 2 minutes for Monsieur Desilets and Madame Blaney. So let's start with Mrs. Kathy Wagenthal. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and I really appreciate you being here. I only have 4 minutes. There is so much here, so I'm going to talk a lot. I want you to know that these resources are available to you and would love to meet with you further in regard to the service dogs. VAC has an issue. Government of Canada has an issue. Part of the problem is that the programs have grown across the country. Different provinces are doing different things, and there is no federal standards. There's no national standards, which they tried to do in the previous sitting, but there were issues around conflicts of interest, and the whole thing imploded. You may be familiar with that. Okay, so you are wonderful, your veteran-run charity, that it's free service dogs and everything I hear, I love. You are actually not the only one. There is another one, Odimus. Odimus, it means in Latin, I have a terrible time saying it, may we dare. And they're out of Saskatchewan. And they actually went to the Canadian Accreditation Council with all of their work and research and everything, and now have, as of 2023, national accreditation. And they also, because of their great work, they gave them international accreditation without asking. So I would encourage you to reach out to them. My office can assist you with this. Their program is similar, free dogs. There's no reason veterans should be spending $30,000 on a dog. And the training program where it's them and the dog and follow up, all these things, remarkable. So I would encourage you to reach out. They have research that was done through the University of Regina and the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon. The researchers had their own service dogs, and their research definitely supports that these dogs make a huge difference in the lives of the veterans that qualify for them and need them, certainly. So I just want to draw your attention to one more thing. We did do a service dog report at this committee. Are you familiar with it? Okay, 4 meetings from with 16 witnesses in the 43rd Parliament from May 12th to June 14th, 2021. However, the report wasn't adopted until the 44th Parliament in June 10th of 2022. So this is something that we as a committee and this government, in fact, need to get things done properly. ADI is not accredited in Canada. So you have a non-accredited body being picked up by the provinces and saying that you need to use this organization. One of our researchers here, I mentioned, took her dog into the States, and they're accredited. They're nationally accredited themselves. And she can't get her dog back into Canada without ADI recognizing it. This is the kind of mess that our country is in this regard. And would love to work with you guys to make sure that this gets cleaned up with the various steps we need to do. So, did I use up all my time?
1 more minute.
1 more minute, okay. Well, I would just like to know, are you located in Ontario?
In Ottawa, our headquarters
Ottawa.
is out of the Legion in Bell's Corners.
Okay,
We chose that way to be able to spread across Canada a little more easier.
right.
Yes, you were talking about Lindsay Williams, and we actually work with her. Actually, Sandy
Perfect.
right there is on their council and their committee.
Okay,
And working with.
wonderful, good to hear. So the thing we need to do is there's all kinds of different ways to do service dog supports, but we need that level of accountability that I
Absolutely.
know that that's what you're looking for, and
Yeah.
that's what we need to do on your behalf.
Standards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seconds, that's okay.
Is there anything more you, well, this is Tristan. He makes me look good. And we will connect with you to make sure that we could communicate in the future. Okay, and I'll connect you with the other dogs program with you.
Thank you very much, respecting the time. And now, let's go to Mr. Sean Casey. 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Sharp, I appreciated your comment with respect to case managers at Veterans Affairs and how you had positive and negative experiences. Ms. McDonald, I understand that you, for a brief period of time in your career, were a case manager at Veterans Affairs. Is that right? Can you talk about that a bit?
It was a good experience in terms of being able to serve veterans. I found that there was issues in terms of the medical documentation that was coming out from the Canadian Armed Forces. The Canadian Armed Forces basically has its own medical system that is separate from the rest of Canada's. And there would be issues in terms of veterans saying that they had certain service-related conditions that were not documented in the record, and then that would make it so that the department would not be able to give them benefits for the issues that they were seeking. And there was an issue in terms of the quality of, like, in terms of working in the civilian system and then going and transferring over into the military system. In the civilian system, if you don't follow along with your professional code, like your professional standards, you will have issues within that profession, as you'll be called out on them. But that is not what happens within the military healthcare system. And that's an issue where military service members need to have the same quality and access to healthcare as the rest of Canadians do, because they are fighting for they're trying to defend our interests. So we need to treat them just as well as we treat civilians.
Thank you. I understand that you currently have a case before the Canadian Human Rights Commission. Is that right?
Yes.
What's the status of that?
It's been going on for 8 years. It's incredibly painful in terms of the amount of time that it takes for a case to go through. I had to do a lot of the background work where I had to basically put the case together by going through access to information and with the evidence that I had gathered whenever I was in the military and being abused by them. I was lucky in terms of I have a really awesome lawyer in Prince Edward Island who is working on consignment, like she's helping me, where not everybody can have that, and not everybody has like the amount of time that you have to go through to working with the Human Rights Tribunal, where it's taking 8 years, is too much time. And the reason why it would be taking a lot of time would be that the government of Canada made a lot of frivolous arguments to prevent the case from going forward. So the stuff that you guys have done in terms of saying that now any member of the Canadian Armed Forces can go directly to the Canadian Human Rights Commission if they're being discriminated, I believe that that will help current serving members to protect themselves. So thank you for doing that.
I saw in the records that you had put in an access to information request and it had been denied. And I think, I'm not sure if that's the same thing that you referenced earlier, that you're continuing to pursue that. Am I correct on that? Are they tied to the human rights complaint?
Everything is tied into trying to find some sort of, to prove what happened and to collect evidence in terms of what happened during my service. So all the access to information requests would be working.
Point of order.
Right.
Excuse me.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just want to alert everybody. MP May, you're on. Your microphone's on. We can hear his phone call.
Okay. Thank you. So it's over. Thank you, Mr. Kessy, and je voudrais aussi souhaiter la bienvenue à notre.
I also wanted to welcome our colleague Pierre Paulus, who is with us. And now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Desilets for the next 2 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Ms. McDonald, once again, 6 years after the events that you talked about, the dramatic events, do you have the impression that there has been any improvement in how these complaints are handled relating to sexual assault or harassment?
As I mentioned with Sean Casey, the part where people will be able to go directly to the Human Rights Commission, that's a good thing. The issue, the stuff that's happening now where it's being removed from the military is very helpful, because there's been a lot of issues where victims, their cases are fumbled or mishandled and the evidence isn't processed properly. And I think that that's purposeful on the part of the military not doing it correctly because of the culture, where I think that they still have a long way to go, and I don't think that there's that much improvement that's happened. But I appreciate the things that you guys are doing to try to make that trickle down.
But regarding the culture, do you still have some colleagues who are in the army 8 years later? Has there been any improvement in your opinion?
Can you repeat the question?
As regards the culture of the army, which is quite specific, of course, I'm referring to the fact that the accused may be responsible for conducting the investigation. Has there been any improvement? Have you been hearing around you 6 years later?
Some friends that are currently enlisted that it is a lot better than it used to be in terms of them talking about the, like, acknowledging that it's not right and how new members are being trained, but there's still issues in terms of women going, or women and men going through basic training and getting sexually assaulted, which is not acceptable and that shouldn't happen. So there's some change that's happening, but the core changes that need to occur are not happening. And some of it is just like the military not employing common sense environmental health and safety rules when they're putting on the training, because this is the way they always did it, or this is how they did it in the 1970s, so this is how we're going to do it in 2024.
Thank you.
Merci.
Merci, Monsieur
Thank you.
Desilets. Maintenant, la parole à Madame.
And now the floor to Ms. Rachel Blaney for the next 2 minutes.
Well, thank you so much, Chair. And I hate to correct you, Kathy, but actually there are published national standards for all animal-assisted human services. It's not specific just to service dogs, but does include it. Ms. Joanne Moss wrote our committee and let us know that that work had been done. And again, I think it's very important work because it took it out of the organizational level, which obviously created a lot of conflict and set up some standards. So hopefully what we'll see happen next is VAC to use those standards so that there can be more supports for organizations that provide service dogs as long as they meet those standards. So that leads me to my next question, and I am going to come to Mr. Sawyer and Ms. Sharp, and I'll start with you first. Ms. Sharp, let you answer first, and then if Mr. Sawyer could add on. I guess because this study is very specific about women veterans, I'm just wondering if you could share, Ms. Sharp, what specific parts of serving as a woman that your service dog has provided support, Stoker. I think that's incredible. You really articulated it well. I've heard from other veterans as well that they won't leave the house unless they have their service dog. So I'm just wondering if you could talk about specifically as a woman who's served your country, how does it help? And then if Mr. Sawyer has anything specific about women accessing the service for the organization, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
I think one of the biggest things that Stoker's given me is that sense of safety. I am single, I live alone, and I am not looking to have anyone else in my life. So being someone who lives alone, there's always been a little bit of a feeling of less safe for myself. So even though Stoker is not trained to do it, Stoker doesn't have any sort of attack commands or anything like that. He's my giant teddy bear, but I know that if anything happened in my home, he would alert me to it. And that safety is invaluable. You know, being able to sleep through the night and not have concerns that someone is going to do something to me in my sleep is absolutely invaluable. And I think as well, we've spoken about how within the military, it's almost, you know, being part of a unit or part of a section gives you that element of family. And because of my experience in the forces, that family experience wasn't necessarily the best. But now within the dog unit, I'm part of a unit where I feel safe and comfortable with my male peers. It's the first time in a very long time that I've been able to have male peers who are veterans and feel safe and comfortable and respected.
Thank you very much, Ms. Blaney. And wow, it is over for the first hour. So on behalf of members of the committee and myself, I'd like to say to our witnesses, thank you so much for being here today. And as individual, we have with us Mrs. Paula McDonald, and from the Canadian Veteran Service Dog Unit, Mr. Dwayne Sawyer as president, and Christina Sharp, member. And if you have anything you'd like to add, you can send email to our clerk, and it will be really interesting. So, members, we're going to take a short break of 1 or 2 minutes. So I'm going to suspend, and we're going to start. Meeting suspended. OK, voilà, donc nous
Here we are, so we shall resume our session. So, for the part that remains, I want to tell you, first of all, it would be fine, just very briefly, if we could adopt the budget on the transition to civil life of 38,500 that we sent you, the budget. And just briefly a reminder that the travel period, if the committee wishes to travel, is from April 1st to June 30th, 2024, and the detailed budget should be provided to the budget subcommittee of the liaison committee by February 16, 2024. There we are. So just briefly, if you don't mind, you will have received the budget for the study on transition to civilian life. Are there any objections to the adoption of that budget? No objections? Very well. Budget carried. So I'll be able to sign that. And then, as I stated at the beginning of the meeting, personally, I have a commitment at 6:30 p.m. I have to leave. So I would like somebody to be able to replace me, because we can go right through until 7:10. So there we are. So in 5 or 6 minutes, yes, Mr. Randeep?
Chair, I will have to actually leave at 6:30. I have an event as well. So if you're asking for consent, I can't grant consent.
the consent of members of the committee to go over 6:30. Yeah. Okay. Mr. May, and after that, Ms.
Thank you,
Blaney.
Mr. Chair. First and foremost, my deepest apologies for my rude interruption during the previous testimony there, and thank you, MP Blaney, for point of ordering me on that, rightfully so. You talked briefly about travel budgets. I just want to make sure I didn't miss something. Are we proposing a travel trip of some sort? If so, I have some input on that.
Mr. May, I'm sorry. We just say that we have consensus on the budget. So unless that we ask the committee to look at it again, but we just say there is no problem to adopt the travel budget. You're talking about
I misunderstood. No, I apologize.
Yeah.
You said travel budget, so I thought maybe there was a trip that was being proposed.
No.
My mistake.
No. Excuse me. The travel budget, sorry. I just said that we have till February 16 to send.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And before I go to Mr. Richards, Ms. Blaney.
I'm sure we can find somebody else to chair in your seat. I'm happy to stay till 7:10. Just thought I would let the record show.
Thank you. So I will ask for unanimous consent, and we'll find someone to chair if the committee decide to go over 6:30. So Mr. Richards, and after that, Mr. Miao. Yes, Casey.
Well, Mr. Chair, incredibly disappointed in the situation that we're faced with here. We have attempted now to move this motion to get to the bottom of the situation where the Prime Minister and his office have interfered in the building of a monument to our veterans who served this country in Afghanistan, delaying the construction of the monument. We have now tried, I believe this might be the fourth time, and the Liberal and NDP parties have found ways to delay the ability to move this motion, so we can just try to get to the bottom of what's happened here. Incredibly frustrating, and I can only imagine how the veterans who serve this country in Afghanistan must feel when we can't even just have a motion to try and get to the bottom of what's happened.
Point of order?
Excuse me, Mr. Richards. Ms. Blaney, point of order.
Oh, I'm sorry, just asking for clarity, and maybe this isn't a point of order, but I was hoping the motion would be moved so we could vote. I think we only have 8 minutes, so hopefully that can be done.
Yes, exactly. But he has the floor, Mr. Richards, so I let him go.
So, yes, and I just want to make it really clear that I would certainly have hoped we could have a vote today too. I'm quite worried that this may not in fact happen now. Just to provide a little bit of context, this is a situation where we have a prime minister who, after their government spent several years just trying to get a design for a monument. In November of 2021, there was a design that was they were informed of a design that had won a competition that they had set up, and then over the course of a year and a half following that, the government, for some reason or other, which is unknown to anybody except for the Prime Minister and his office and maybe a few other individuals, spent a year and a half trying to find a way to change the decision, despite all the advice that we've seen as a committee that came from the departments involved, the Veterans Affairs Department and the Canadian Heritage Department, saying that this is absolutely what should happen. And so here we have again a situation where we have a Prime Minister who has this pattern of disrespect for our veterans. He was the one that told them they were asking for more than he could give.
Point of order.
He's the one who is...
Point of order, Ms. Blenny.
Sorry to interrupt again. I'm just checking. We're now down to 6 minutes. As I've said publicly, I'm willing to support this motion, so I'm hoping we can get to it. With only 6 minutes, I'm really concerned that it won't get done today, so hopefully we can see that motion moved. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Blenny. So Mr. Richards has the floor.
And the more points of order, the more difficult it is to get to a vote. So hopefully we can get to it. So bottom line is, there's been interference by the Prime Minister's office. We need this motion to be able to get to the bottom of what that is. It's been stalled and delayed several times now. So let's actually get to the motion. Let's vote on it today. I hope that all members will support this motion so that we can end whatever the cover-up is here and actually get to the bottom of whatever the situation is and why the Prime Minister interfered to delay the construction of this monument to honor our Afghanistan veterans. So, Mr. Chair, I move that in relation to its study on the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan, the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs, A, call the Deputy Commander of Military Personnel, Lieutenant General Lise Burgon, and B, order the production of all memoranda, briefing notes, emails, correspondence, or any other records of conversations or communications, including text messages, Microsoft Teams messages, WhatsApp messages, Signal messages, or other electronic messaging with regard to the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan, transmitted since November the 8th of 2021 between 1, the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Office of the Minister of Veterans Affairs, 2, the Department of Canadian Heritage and the Office of the Minister of Canadian Heritage, 3, the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Privy Council Office, 4, the Department of Canadian Heritage and the Privy Council Office, 5, the Privy Council Office and the Office of the Prime Minister, 6, the Office of the Minister of Veterans Affairs and the Office of the Prime Minister, and 7, the Office of the Minister of Canadian Heritage and the Office of the Prime Minister. Provided that these documents shall be provided to the Clerk of the Committee in both official languages and without redaction within 21 days of the adoption of this motion. So I move that, Mr. Chair, and I really hope that the cover-up is going to end here and that we will get a vote and we can pass this motion. All members will support it, and we can get to the bottom of why this monument was delayed due to the interference of the Prime Minister's office.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. So on the list, I have few names. I have Mr. Miao, Mr. Casey, Ms. Blenny, Mr. May, Monsieur Desilets, Monsieur Casey, and Monsieur Paulus. So,
Mr. Casey, and Mr. Paulus. So I'll start with Mr. Miao and Mr. Sarai afterwards.
Mr. Miao, yes.
Mr. Speaker, the following comment is not the intervention about this motion, but I do have a flight to catch. So I would like to see if we can debate on this later on, because there was opportunity for a Conservative to talk about this motion in previous committee, and I don't understand why they are putting this forward in such manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miao. So I have other members on the list. So now let's go to Mr. Casey. Shane Casey, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to propose an amendment to the motion. I think it would probably make it stronger. We've heard an awful lot of comments around this. Most of the time that the minister has come before the committee in recent months, the purpose of her visit, whether it was actually on this study or whether it was on estimates or whether it was on anything else, this subject tied it up. We've heard debate in the House that, and there's been a lot of discussion about the jury. And in the House, there was a reference that the jury made a unanimous decision. I think that's an important element if we're going to dig into all of the other things that are contained in this production of documents motion. I would like to propose the following amendment to add another category of documents after paragraph B sub 8, and that would be that we add that Veterans Affairs Canada produce any correspondence received from members of the jury responsible for evaluating the final designs for the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan since June of 2023. I think that those documents would be relevant to assess the claim of unanimity within the jury, whether there were preoccupations, whether any jurors had some concerns after the fact, what communication there was among members of the jury leading up to the decision, and what communications there was as between the jury and Veterans Affairs. There have been public statements made to the fact that everyone was on the same page, but we don't know that, and I think it's important. So I would like to propose that amendment to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Kissy. So now, members of the committee, we have an amendment. So the list that I have previously, it was on the main motion. So now I have an amendment. So I don't know if members who have already their hands raised, if they would like, no. Okay, so before we go further, I'm so sorry that I have to leave. So first of all, we need unanimous consent to go over 6:30. And if yes, we're going to have to decide to chair that committee for the rest of the meeting. So in order, we have to start with the first vice president, the second one, and so on. So first of all, I'd like to know if we have unanimous consent to continue until 7 and 10 minutes after 7.
No, unfortunately, I have an event to go. I think he has a flight.
And the cover-up continues.
We have no consent, so I'm sorry, we have to stop right here. So, je remercie tout le monde qui a participé à cette.
I wish to thank everyone who participated in this meeting, our translators, the technicians, analysts, and clerk. So that being said, the meeting is adjourned.